So when it comes to cryptocurrency, some interesting stats that we've seen. So on the left here, we found that the next generation is far more comfortable with cryptocurrency. So you can see whether they own it over here. Millennials tend to be much more comfortable owning it than some of the other generational sections, and then likely to consider much higher in the millennial section as well. When we look at considering cryptocurrency, the total population thinks that it's a smart investment at 18%, but the much younger generation, much more favorability to this type of asset class. The reason why this is important to look at is there's a lot of confusion about how these assets are taxed. And so on the left here, not a lot of people realize, especially those who don't own it, don't realize that cryptocurrency, when you sell it, it's going to be a taxable event. So there's some education that can be provided. And then primarily on the gift planning side, the vast majority don't realize that cryptocurrency can be donated to a charitable organization. So there's a lot of opportunity to have that discussion. We've got a client who's in the 37% bracket, subject to 20% capital gains tax and the Medicare surtax. But what's important here is they want to help support cancer research with a recurring charitable gift. And so this particular person had bought cryptocurrency or Bitcoin at 300,000, it decreased by 800,000. And so if they were to sell it, instead of gifting it outright, they would be subject to $190,000 worth of capital gains. With the remaining amount of $909,600, they would get a tax savings of $336,552. However, if they decided to utilize a donor advised fund that could accept that cryptocurrency, they would pay no capital gains tax. They would get that deduction. Now, what's important about any illiquid or non-publicly traded asset is that the IRS says you have to get a qualified independent appraisal for that gift. So you'd have to get an appraisal on the date of the transfer to say what was the value of the gift. So they get that $1,100,000 deduction, which would provide them a $407,000 income tax savings. But like I mentioned earlier, the real benefit here is that $190,000 that would have gone in the form of capital gains is now being utilized to help support the cancer research that this donor would want to do.